All right, what's up, my friends? Rip City Drive, Chad, doing with you. All right, let me set the table for you so you know what we got cracking on the show today. All right, first up tomorrow, the NBA Draft 2025. Our coverage with the Rip City Drive will launch at 3 o'clock from Dr. Jack's over at the Rose Quarter. The Rip City Drive will go up until 4:30, and that's when Travis Demers, the voice of your Trailblazers, takes over with Francis Williams, Trailblazers analyst, and they're going to anchor coverage from 4:30 until the end of the first round and Joe Cronin's press conference. That is tomorrow. Your best coverage of the NBA Draft in Portland here on 620 Rip City Radio. Also, your Portland Trailblazers are going to have a block party draft edition at the Rose Quarter Commons, which launches at 4:30. So head on over, take the kids. They're going to have a lot of great things set up, including DJ OG1, who's going to be bumping some music. They're going to have blow-up games, face painters, so you can get nice little pinwheels on your grills. You can celebrate and take in the draft. There'll be some great sampling at Dr. Jack's, including a Rocky Mountain Refreshing Coors Light. So everything you want is going on in one spot. Even the Rip City Remix are going to be on hand at the Block Party Draft Edition tomorrow at the Rose Quarter Commons, with our coverage kicking off from Dr. Jack's at 3. Travis DeBurse, Francis Williams take over at 4:30. And when you're over there, stop by the iHeart tent and enter for your chance to win a pretty sweet Trailblazer prize pack with a authentic autographed Scoot Henderson jersey. Also, 4 Coors Light silver seats to an upcoming game so you can sit in style with the cushy chairs and the Colorado technology to keep your Coors Light chilled throughout the game, and phone chargers. And we have a signed Blazers pennant. I've seen all the items. They are terrific. I've sat in the Coors Light silver seats, and all you have to do is stop by and enter for your chance to win. It won't cost you anything. You can't beat that. As I've always tried to tell you, I'm a man of the people. I'm here to help people. So that is what's going on tomorrow. Now, coming up on the show today, obviously, we're going to dive in and deal with the trade that went down last night. Anthony Simons on his way to Boston, along with 2 second-round picks in exchange for Jrue Holiday. So we'll talk with Travis Demers in about 15 minutes, the voice of the Trailblazers. Chris Burkhart is going to stop by in studio at 4:20. We'll get his take. And then Sean Hiken, our Trailblazer insider from the Rose Garden Report, will join the program at 5:20. Now, I would love to hear from you. The telephone number here is 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. The most important thing I want to know is what you think about the trade. 503-248-0620. You can listen to the show on our free iHeartRadio app. I would suggest making 620 Rip City Radio one of your presets. And you can also join us on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, Rip City Radio 620, and you can pull up the live stream here in studio and be troubled by my grill. So that's what we have going today. 3 people with different perspectives to come on and talk Trailblazers. Well, it happens like this pretty much all the time. You never know when a deal is going to go down. I think most of us, myself, and I would imagine you as well, expected something to happen. And we knew going into the offseason, the Trailblazers, they had their young core that we knew was the foundation moving forward. Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, Donovan Clingan, Tamani Kamara, and Denny Avdia. We also knew that the team had some veterans that no longer fit the timeline or the makeup of the roster in terms of what Chauncey Billups is trying to accomplish. That would be Anthony Simons. That would be Jeremy Grant, Robert Williams III, and who am I missing there? Let's see here. DeAndre Ayton. You know, we didn't know exactly what the answer would be, but we expected moves to happen with one or multiple vets that were on the roster. Now, Matisse Thybulle has picked up the player option, not a surprise, $11.5 million. He'll be back on the team next year. But he fits the culture, and he's defensive-minded, and he's a Chauncey Billups type, so he fits nicely. I expected him to pick up the option because he missed most of last year with that ankle injury, and so it would have been harder for him to get the type of money he was probably looking for in the open market. So Thybulle is back. But the first veteran to go is Anthony Simons. I told you, and I've said repeatedly, that I would have thought Jeremy Grant. but it ends up to be Ant who is on his way to Boston. Now, I've had a chance to take in a lot of different experts and their thoughts on the deal. I've heard from a number of you out there in Rip City, and the majority of people I've heard from are either confused by the deal or don't really understand why the Blazers made the deal, meaning the majority of you don't seem to be happy with the deal that was made. But I'm going to take a different path. I actually like the move. Number one, Jrue Holiday has been, and I think most of you are aware of this, he's been one of the most well liked players in the NBA for quite some time. He's a culture guy, he's a locker room guy, he's one of the best human beings in the NBA. I love him and his family, and he plays really hard. But what's really nice about him, he's a two-way player. He is a defensive-minded stopper, and we saw that years ago in the first round against the Pelicans when he shut down Damian Lillard. He is a defensive-minded, hardworking guy. The other part I like about his game is that he can shoot the three ball, but most importantly, he can impact the game without having the ball in his hands. That's something that Simon struggled with. So I think fit-wise, based on the type of team this is now with their makeup, defensive-minded, good locker room, like it's a good fit, Jrue Holiday, no question about it. Now, he is older. He's 35. I think Simons was 27, so there's age difference. And Holiday is making more money, over $30 million a year. But the Trailblazers now, based on everything that we've heard from them after the season, they're trying to take that next step, and they want to win. And when you bring in a guy like Holiday, it's going to give them more versatility in their lineup. They're going to be able to attack defensively. And like we saw with Indiana and Oklahoma City, it's nice to have a bunch of two-way guys on the floor who can create turnovers with their ball pressure, which result in easier buckets on the other end of the floor. So I really like the fit. I mean, he is really a terrific, terrific guy and a hard-nosed player. He's a Chauncey Billups type. And I would imagine, I think mentor or whatever word you want to use, I think he gets overblown sometimes. But I'll tell you one thing, when you got a guy like Holiday on your roster and he's having a chance to play with and practice with and be around guys like Scoot Henderson or Shaden Sharp, that is a good thing for them because they can learn how to operate on the floor by watching him, by playing with him, seeing how he moves and operates without the basketball, seeing how he approaches things defensively. Like it's nice to have a guy like that on the roster. Now, the immediate concern, and again, this comes without any other moves being done. We haven't hit the draft yet. We're not in free agency yet, which is coming up at the beginning of July. So there are more moves that are coming that are right around the corner. At least I would expect that. So it's always hard to look at one maneuver and be able to understand exactly what's going on. I think things or the picture will be a lot more clear over the next couple of weeks as we get into free agency after the draft, which is tomorrow. And the Blazers are going to be picking number 11 overall. So the big loss right now is, the Blazers need guys who can, create their own shot. Holiday definitely could do that. He's very good at shot creation, and not just for himself, but for his teammates. But he's 35 years old now, so they're going to need offense. They need shooting. But they can look to that in the draft. They can also look to that with other potential moves. And hopefully, at least through my mind, that's involving Jeremy Grant so you can continue to add to the roster with the type of players you want, but also, create that opening now for, Denny Avdia and Tamani Kamara to start and play together. So that's kind of how I see it. Now, with Anthony Simons, I've got nothing but respect for him. We had a chance to watch him grow up here in Portland from a young age into a young man. And he's developed into a terrific offensive player, very good shooter. He's soft-spoken, but he's been a valuable member in the community. He's done a lot of great things. And so I wish him nothing but the best moving forward. And now he's going to have a chance to go and play meaningful basketball for one of the best franchises in the history of the NBA. I'm a big Anthony Simons fan. That's a very good human being, a great young man who's done a lot of good things in the community. But the Blazers now are in a position where, gone are the days of trying to improve draft position. And now they're looking to take that next step. And what I like about this roster now, it's totally different than a few years ago. We now have a group of guys who are two-way players, who are versatile. They have very good length, and they have a bunch of guys that want to get after it defensively. Matisse Thybulle, Jrue Holiday, Denny Avdia, Tamani Kamara. Got a shot blocker in Donovan Clingan. They've got some hard-nosed, good character guys on this roster with very good skill sets and a great chance for them to grow. And this is no surprise to me. You know, what I anticipated after the Blazers drafted Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson, you know, we knew that eventually at some point there would be the fork in the road and you'd have to move on from Anthony Simons. Of all the possibilities of all the different, people, experts I had talked to, the one thing that just didn't make sense to me was, they could hold on to Ant, have him play out the season and let his deal expire. You could play him into the year and then deal him at the deadline. Or you could extend him because he's extension eligible, but that never made any sense to me. You draft Scoot, you draft Shaden, but you're going to extend Ant and continue to have him be a part of the team. Like, that didn't make sense to me after they drafted Scoot and Shaden. So that's where we're at. So I'd love your thoughts on what you think about the move. 503-248-0620. You can reach out to me on social media at Chad and Rip City. I want to get your take on the deal. And what do you think about the move? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What are the reasons why? 503-248-0620. Travis Demers will join us. We'll get to your phone calls. And then Chris Burkhart in studio at 420 with draft coverage tomorrow starting at 3 on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Travis Demers, the voice of your Trailblazers, coming up in just a couple of moments, but I want to get out to the phones 503 248 0620. It's pretty funny. I'm looking at the phone screen right now, and I was putting in information, and our next guest is not in Satan, but Staten. I typed it in, and I was talking and typing at the same time, and I put in the wrong name. It's in Staten, Oregon, which, of course, I grew up in my broadcasting days there calling games for Regis and Staten. We go out there right now. Aaron in Staten. Aaron, I appreciate the call. What's your take on the trade?
Hey, it's finally something that moves the needle, I feel like we've just been in this conundrum with what are we going to do with the team, and I was actually excited. I'm a fan, somewhat passive, and this is something that I'm excited about. I think he fits perfectly under Chauncey. He's a guy who plays the game the way Chauncey wants it played. I think he'll be a good tutor for Scoot. I think he'll help that backcourt. And when was the last time we had a guard who was a defender where you could say, hey, you're going to count on this guy to take a good responsibility on the other team, and just you can't go wrong getting character in the clubhouse either. I mean, come on. To me, it's a win. I'm sad to see Ant go. We watched him kind of flourish, but I think he'll continue on and have success. I hope he bears no ill will. We certainly appreciated him here.
Oh, there's no doubt. I agree with your take on Ant. He's a terrific human being, and we did watch him grow up. It's fun to watch someone come in so young and so raw and grow up as a basketball player, but more importantly as a man and someone that was, along with his family, making a difference in the community. And I want nothing but the best for him. But Jrue Holiday, I agree. He is a Chauncey Billups prototype. Between he and Kamara and Denny Avdia, I mean, you've got guys who are basically Chauncey Billups, an extension of him out there on the floor. And I like that. And that's one of the reasons why I was excited to see Billups get the extension, because you have all these guys coming back under the same system, and they'll just continue to learn and thrive. There won't be any confusion. They know where they need to be, how they need to execute, and then go out there and get it done. All right, our next guest, I'm not sure how he came across it, but he needs your help because he came across a photo album, and he's trying to connect the family with the photo album because it's some personal treasures. Let's go out and talk with Gary. Now, Gary, I appreciate the phone call. Now, explain to the listening audience how you came across the photo album.
Well, hey, Chad, first off, thank you for doing this. I'm definitely trying to do the right thing for this family. Anyway, I buy a lot of stuff at estate sales, and I came across this photo album at an estate sale because I collect black and white photos, and I resell them. But anytime there's information about some of the people that could be connected to the photos, I always try to connect and return the family photos to them. So that's how I came across this. Now, I reached out to went to the address where there was a postcard addressed to a gentleman named Richard Paul here in Portland, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us, and I just don't know how to contact his family now. So his looks like his wife, her name was Margaret Dubois, and she has a high school teacher's diploma. Well, she got her diploma from college to teach high school, and I believe she might have been a teacher in the Portland area. So that's just all I know so far. And if that sounds familiar to anyone, if they could reach out to you guys, that would be fantastic.
All right, that sounds great. Now, Gary, I want to make sure I got the names right. Did you say his name, the gentleman who passed away, is Richard Paul?
Correct.
Okay, and his wife's name was Margaret Dubois?
Yeah, Margaret Dubois, Dubois.
All right, perfect. And she's got a diploma, and you think that she may have been a teacher in the Portland area?
Correct. And so there's two names here. I mean, there's a birth certificate from 1953. So Margaret Dubois Paul is the mother, and they had a daughter born in 1953, and they named her Mary Margaret Dubois. this is an original birth certificate from 1953. That diploma from college is from 1922. I mean, they got pictures of like their great grandma as a baby from 1897 in here. A lot of original photos from the early 1900s all the way up to the 70s. So yeah, I think it would be fantastic to reconnect this with the family.
All right, Gary, what I've done is I've got your phone number, and I wrote it down. And Gary went to an estate sale, and he came across a photo album because he likes to collect black and white photos. But he came across a photo album that obviously has meaning to somebody out there. The gentleman's name who has passed away is Richard Paul. He was married to Margaret Dubois, who he thinks may have been a teacher in Portland, and he found a birth certificate from 1953 of their daughter, Mary Margaret Dubois. So if you have information on this, or if you know what family this may be connected to, call us here in the studio, 503-248-0620, and I will get you in touch with Gary so that he can get the photo album back to you. Gary, I appreciate you calling in, and I think you're doing the right thing by coming across something that's obviously got some sentimental value to try and, reconnect it with the family. That's awesome.
Yeah, and thank you for giving some valuable airtime for this. That's very nice and generous of you, Chad.
No, that's great. And I'll be in touch after the show. Maybe we can share, or maybe you can share something with me. We can put it out on social media as well to try and see if we can get some traction through the social platforms to see if we can connect you with the family.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I appreciate everything.
All right, you got it. There's Gary with the photo album. Once again, just trying to help people. All right, as you're all aware, the NBA draft is coming up tomorrow, and we got some great things going on. First off, the Rip City Drive will kick off at 3 from Dr. Jax. The Trailblazers Block Party Draft Edition will start at 4:30 from the Rose Quarter Commons. DJ OG1's going to be out there bumping some music. The Rip City Remix are going to be on hand. They're going to have some blow-up games for the kids, face painters. It's going to be a big party as we get ready for the 2025 NBA Draft. Now, at 4:30, the Rip City Drive will hand it over to Trailblazers Broadcasting. That's because the voice of your Trailblazers, Travis Demers, and Francis Williams, who was on the Rip City Drive yesterday, are going to anchor coverage from the beginning of round one all the way through the end of the first round and into Joe Cronin's press conference. And joining us right now to talk about the draft and the big deal that went down last night is Travis Demers, who's back. What's up, buddy?
What's happening, man? Just taking a little break from kid time to hang out.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping, what I'm hoping for privately right now is that we get some kid interruption, because I know your boys are awesome, and I also know that they love to interrupt Dad when he's on the phone. So that's what I'm hoping goes down.
Yeah, Lawson, I would be shocked. I went upstairs. They're downstairs in their tablets for a few minutes. I'd be shocked if Lawson does not come up here and try and at least get me off the phone at some point.
You know what's funny, Travis, that you and I always talk. We talk a lot about basketball or the offseason or things that could happen, and I think we both anticipated that the Blazers could be active throughout the course of the summer, but it always happens in the offseason when I'm like right in the middle of something. So last night I was fixing dinner and I was getting my dinner ready, and then all of a sudden I looked down at my phone and I had an inordinate number of messages from Monday night, and I looked at the headlines and saw what had happened. Anthony Simons traded to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Jrue Holiday. I was not shocked, but always surprised to see what the deal was. What was your reaction when you got the news?
Well, mine was somewhat similar, and I was the boys were in bed. I was sitting in my lazy boy playing some MLB The Show, and my phone just started buzzing. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street, but there's a scene where Rob Reiner, who plays Leonardo DiCaprio's dad, he's watching. I forget what 80s show he was watching, but his phone rings. Like, what is the gall to call me on a Tuesday night? And it's like 8 o'clock. And I was like, who's texting me at like 9 o'clock on a Monday night? Because usually I get between 0 and 0 texts unless I'm hearing from you. And it's just going crazy. And I see, like, there wasn't anything specific. It was like some expletives, or I can't believe that trade. I'm like, what? So I had to go look for it. And Anthony Simons might not have been the first name I was expecting to see.
Yeah.
But he was a name that I was expecting to see. So I was a little surprised exactly what happened.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, we had talked, and I had talked to multiple people about the options with Anthony Simons. You could play him. He could come back next year, and you could let him play out the season and then expire on that contract. They could, offer him the extension this summer, and he could remain in Portland for an extended period of time. Or you could look to deal him. The only thing that I really didn't think would be a possibility would be to extend him and bring him back, only because the Blazers had drafted Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson. So I'll just tell you my first reaction to the deal when I saw it, I was like, well, this makes sense because now you are starting that clearing process where one of the vets is gone, and now it opens up more time for the young guys, especially Scoot and Shaden, to go out and play and continue this process of development.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this many times, right? And it was never this is going to happen. It was always if this happens, it's because of this, right?
Yeah.
So if Anthony Simons were to get traded, it's because they have the faith in Scoot Henderson that he is the point guard of the future. And let's be honest, it was difficult for Anthony and Scoot on the floor at the same time. And those guys had to be on the floor at the same time for portions of a game. And their games didn't complement each other terribly well. So you knew that, and someone was going to have to come off the bench too. So when somebody was moved, you knew which direction they were going. So to say, hey, we've got the faith in Scoot Henderson, we're putting our eggs in the young core and expecting that we're going to be able to develop this group together and get where we want to go with internal development, because it's something that small market teams have to do. Just look at the Thunder. I think it really signified, okay, this is our future right here.
Yeah, no question. We're talking to Travis Demers, the voice of the Trailblazers, as we get ready for the draft, which is coming up on Wednesday. All right, so, that the one thing that I kept thinking about, too, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I really think the Blazers are trying to take that next step this upcoming season. I think they want to win and put themselves in a position to be a playoff contender. And if you look at the roster as a whole and the changes that have been made over the last couple of years, I think we're now starting to see a roster that's filled with Chauncey Billups types. And when you bring in Jrue Holiday, he's going to help immediately defensively, making them an even better defensive ball club and putting them in a position, I think, to win more games because they're going to be able to create more turnovers and get easier buckets. So, I think this is a move that's a part of that push to take that next step, right?
It is, and I know people are focused on the contract and some things like that. And again, this is a reported deal; it has not been finalized yet, so we're just going off of the report here. That we are expecting it to be finalized at some point, whether it's July 6th or tomorrow or whenever. The contract is one thing, but what most fans are going to notice is what happens on the floor. Is Jrue Holiday going to start? I don't think so. Could I be wrong? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think they're bringing Jrue Holiday in to be the starting point guard of this team. But what he does, he is an elite, switchable defender. And that's one thing that this team has a lot of right now is very good switchable defenders, and he is elite, in that mindset of what Chauncey Billups wants. And he's the ultimate team guy, and he's always been that way. Everything that we have heard about Jrue Holiday is he's not a good human being. He is a great human being. And this team has sorely lacked that veteran player leader. Malcolm Brogdon was quite a bit of that a couple of years ago, but he wasn't there last year. And there was no veteran leader that had the respect, that commanded it, that knew what to do in situations. Now he's won 2 championships, and he can still play. He can still play well. Has he lost a step? Yeah, sure. He's 35 years old. But he is the ultimate locker room guy. And when you have a group of young players, all 25 or younger, and a lot of them are even younger than that, as your main core, you have to have somebody that's not on the coaching staff, that can be in players' meetings, that can be a resource for players, that has been there and been in those situations. And you just look at what Chris Paul did for the Phoenix Suns, and I understand he was a little younger at that time, and he was a big part on the floor of what they did. I'm not saying Jrue isn't going to be that, but a team that went into the bubble and won 8 straight games and missed the playoffs in the Suns went to the finals next year when they added Chris Paul. Chris Paul with the Spurs is doing similar things right now, but in more of a bench role. And one of the things that I was saying towards the end of last year is, man, this team really needs to get a veteran in here. Somebody that's willing to come off the bench. Maybe they're at the end of their career and isn't going to play a lot, like a Vince Carter in Atlanta type of thing. But Jrue Holiday is better than that because he can still compete and he can still play, and he can play defense at an elite level. And to your point about these all being Chauncey guys, there is not a single player left on this roster that played for Terry Stotts. The longest tenured Trailblazer is Shaden Sharp when he was drafted, because Jeremy Grant was traded for, a week or two after that. Shaden Sharp is the longest tenured Trailblazer.
Wow. Yeah, it's changed. The makeup of the team has changed. And you know what's really wild right now is that this team suddenly is a tougher, defensive-minded type ball club. It's totally different than what we saw 6 or 7 years ago, just the entire makeup of the team. And I think a lot of that has to do with a different front office, but more importantly, a head coach that's finally starting to get the type of guys that he wants that will execute and play the way that he wants, and they'll take on his personality like we saw, in the second half of last season.
Yeah, totally. And Jrue Holiday is absolutely that guy. One of the things that I love about him is, sometimes it takes the right player or the right coach around somebody to bring things out of you, right? And it's been like that with us in radio. I'm sure it's like that with people in sales or whatever industry that they're in, that you have a mentor, someone who can still do the job, but someone that is there for you to help you and challenge you and bring stuff out of you. And that's why I think Jrue Holiday is so important to this team, because you have so many young guys that haven't had that, and now they do. And yes, this is a move for the now and the next year, maybe two, who knows after that. But in the big picture, Jrue Holiday's presence is going to make this team better. It's going to help them in close games. It's going to help them on off days. I can't wait to see what he does to help challenge these guys, because he's not coming in here to be a coach. He's coming in here to play, and he is a winner, a proven winner, and he wants to win. Is their goal to win a championship this year? I'm sure they'd love to, but I don't think that's the number one goal or the expectation. Reach the play-in before you start reaching for the stars. But he wants to win. He's not coming in here to be on a team that's going to win 25 games and, just be along for the ride. So I'm really excited about all of that.
Yeah, so right now today, without the draft being here yet, and of course no other moves have been made, what would be your biggest concern with the deal? Is it the age of Holiday? Is it the price of the contract? Or is it the loss of, offense and good shooting right now with Anthony Simons?
Well, if I can comment about the contract, right? You think about this, Chad. He's got 2 more years and then a player option. So basically 3 more years and $70+ million. He's making $30+ million for the next few years. And that looks like a lot on paper, and it is. I think for anybody that would be a lot of money. But when you have your core players that are all either on their rookie deals or smaller deals, they're still under the tax with this move. I think they're still $6, $7, $8 million under the tax with this move. So this isn't a kind of trade that completely hampers you. And it's not a 5-year deal. It's a 2 with an option. And who knows, they could move him again at some point, maybe next year or the year after, whatever, when his contract becomes expiring. But this isn't a financially crippling move, because nobody else in the team makes a lot of money that's part of the long-term future. Is DeAndre Ayton part of the long-term future? I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Is Jeremy Grant? I could be wrong, but I don't think so. The 5 guys that are the long-term core of this team are Scoot, Shaden, Denny, Tumani, and Klingon. Could other guys be part of that? Could Ryan Rupert or Chris Murray? Yeah, they could. But those 5 guys are the core. And when the core of your team is making as little money collectively as they are, and you are in that financial position, you can afford to bring in somebody like Jrue Holiday, who is overpaid right now at this stage of his career. But I think what he brings is very valuable and worth it in that context. So to your question and to your point, yeah, I think the biggest thing that they are missing losing Anthony Simons at this point is shooting and scoring. And he can score at multiple levels, right? But in his career, he has been a knockdown three-point shooter. He had a rough year last year. Tumani Kamara was the leading three-point shooter on this team in terms of percentage last year. Simons shot around, I think it was like 36.1%. That's a down year for him, and he was inconsistent. But I think there were also a lot of things for him that really affected him. And I think for him getting a fresh start where he's not going to need to be the guy is going to be huge for him too. I really think this is one of those trades where it's a win for everybody, the teams and the players.
Well, the other good thing too is that compared to a guy like Ant, Holiday is one of those guys who he can impact the game in a positive way, even when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, right? Because he can play off ball. He can do so many different things. That's the type of
Yeah.
player he is. I enjoy that. Now, we got the draft coming up on Wednesday. You're going to be anchoring that with Francis Williams.
Yeah.
What interests you the most going into round one with the Trailblazers picking at number 11? What's on your mind?
Well, with the Blazers specifically, Chad, the first draft that I covered as a member of the media was 2004.
Wow.
So it's been a long time, and I've been around a lot of
21 years.
I have never been so uncertain of what the Blazers were going to do with the pick. I have absolutely no idea, no direction. Part of that is because I don't know who's going to be available. And there's so many guys that seem to be interchangeable between 5 or 6 and 11 or 12 or 13 that when you're at 2 or 3 or 7, okay, it's narrowed down a little bit. But when you're at 11 and there's such a broad scope of who could be available, there really is there's zero consensus anywhere. So I think it's Ace Bailey to me is going to be that kind of fulcrum in this draft because he's probably the third best prospect in the draft. But does he go number 3? Because he said he doesn't want to, and he doesn't want to go. Have you ever heard of a player saying, I don't want to go top 3. I'd rather go 5 or 6. Like he wants to go to Washington from what I've been reading. That's weird to me. But if teams at 3 and 4, Philadelphia and Charlotte, if they pass on him, that could be a ripple effect down the lottery. The other thing is, what I'm hearing from fans is, well, if we draft this guy, we can't draft him because we have that guy at that position. Having multiple players that can play at the same position is a good thing. You have 5 young players who can all start right now. Somebody's going to have to come off the bench, whether it's somebody that you already have or whoever you draft. And that means that somebody earned that spot, especially from what we've seen from Chauncey over the last couple of years, that he's not just gifting spots to anybody. So to me, I think they're going to go with best player available. I think it's what they should do. I think it's what they will do. And it's going to be very interesting to see who pushes who. And I don't think that if they draft a power forward, that says they're not confident about their power forward position. Or if they draft a small forward, that they're not confident in that position. I don't think that at all. I think they're going to go best player available, and I have absolutely zero clue who that's going to be.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I have no idea, but based on what Cronin has said or what he said at the end of the season, they're in the business of trying to continue to acquire talent. And so I just think when you're at 11, if you're going to take a player, you take best available regardless of position so you can continue to stockpile the talent. And that gives you flexibility moving forward. And to your point about that you made a moment ago about Jrue Holiday, we don't know what they're going to do in the future, but aren't there options like when you have, like, let's say that Holiday has a bounce back year. If you have a good player at a bigger number, there is flexibility in being able to make, a potential move with that contract in the future if they so decide, right?
Yeah, of course there is. And they could get, who knows, maybe they get a first-round pick back. But think about what Oklahoma City is doing, Chad, because they still have a lot of guys that are on smaller contracts. They're going to have to pay these guys soon. And their plan, because they have drafted so well and developed players so well, is that, okay, we're just going to draft the next guy and move on from whoever it might be that is making too much money in the grand scheme of things. And that's when you have, redundancy at positions or multiple players and you make the best overall decision. And that's why having some of those picks and being able to scout well and draft well, it's not we missed on this guy, but that guy's great. No, we don't want to miss. We want to hit on both of these guys and then have a tough decision to make. And that's where the Thunder have been in, and that's where the Blazers want to be. And I think that's a really important thing to consider is that with the extra picks they have in the future, yes, they will eventually lose a pick when they make the playoffs and it conveys to Chicago. But the future picks are things that are in that same mindset as what Oklahoma City is doing.
All right, Travis Demers, voice of your Trailblazers. Our draft coverage tomorrow will kick off at 3 with the Rip City Drive live from Dr. Jack's. The Trailblazers block party at the Rose Quarter Commons will launch at 4:30. You can stop by the iHeart booth to enter to win the Trailblazers prize pack, 4 Coors Light silver seats to an upcoming game, autographed authentic Scoot Henderson jersey, and a signed Blazers pennant. The draft coverage will be anchored by Travis Demers. He'll be joined by Francis Williams at 4:30, and they're going to be on with you throughout the evening till the end of the first round in Joe Cronin's press conference here on 620 Rip City Radio. Trav, You are the man. This is an exciting time, and I'll let you get back to fatherhood, and then we look forward to hearing from you tomorrow, my friend.
It's always great to talk to you, man. I appreciate it. And I have to let you know that, I told the boys that I'm going to be on a phone call and I'm going to be on the radio with Chad. So, make sure we're quiet. Lawson snuck up here about 10 minutes ago, and he has been very quiet, and he has been a perfect little angel. Is that right, buddy?
That's awesome.
Now he doesn't want to talk.
That's great. No, it's funny. Didn't you say you were on the phone yesterday or doing some type of interview yesterday, and Lawson was he was basically like photobombing you, coming in and making noise.
Yeah, I was doing a hit with our affiliate in Eugene, and he asked me if I could call them back.
Yeah. Hey, can you hold on? I got to talk to Lawson. I'll hit you back in a moment.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thanks, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, buddy. All right, big thanks to Travis Demers. Chris Burkhart going to join me in studio here in a few minutes. Let's bump on out to Northeast Portland. Dan wants to share his thoughts on the trade. Dan, welcome to the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing. What are your thoughts on the deal for Jrue Holiday?
Thanks very much for the line. I'm afraid I'm going to be just parroting points that have been being made all day because I've been in lockdown and just checked in on this. But let's start. I got one major point to make, but let's start with the fact that the perspective I heard earlier today that I totally agree with is I'm pretty sure Jrue Holiday was the single best player that you could get for Ant. I think everybody overvalued what kind of value Ant might command in a trade on the market. I think the front office did, or they would have moved him earlier. I think they really thought they could get more, and they saw this and said, it's just not going to get any better than this. I don't think there were picks, in the offing. So from that perspective, I get the move. I also get my main point here, though. Travis mentioned, I was blown away to hear that Shaedon Sharpe is now the longest tenured Blazer. That's crazy.
That's wild.
And I read that as good news, Chad. And I'm pretty sure you feel me on this because what that says about the org. One of the problems of being a Blazers fan is this organization, this franchise, is so opaque. You think back to the days where Kevin Pritchard was calling in to afternoon shows to talk about the direction of the team and all this. None of that. And one of the effects of that is that as fans, and likewise you guys in the media, too much of the time we're like, what is the plan? What are we doing? Like, we don't get enough information to know. So these moves, we're forced to interpret them ourselves and everything. And there have been many times since the turnover to Corona that we've been like, where are we going? What are we doing? We're drafting projects and then signing Jeremy Grant long term. What's the timeline? Do we have a timeline? What's the plan? And so when I hear that we've turned over the entire team right down to Shaedon, that's great because you know what that means? That's a direction. Blazer fans who are like, what does this franchise do? They're just, twiddling their thumbs. No, they're not. You might not like the plan, but this is the plan. Everybody talks about the OKC blueprint of like stockpiling assets and all that stuff. There's another blueprint that we just saw in the finals, and that's gear up on defense, get dudes that are switchable, that can hit threes and have hands everywhere, put the onus on the refs to make the call, generate fast breaks off turnovers, and generate easier looks. And I'll end with this. Any team where Toumani Camara is now probably the second best defender on this team, that's crazy. That's really, really good. If you have between him, if Thibault can stay healthy, we'll be capable of fielding a lineup with probably 3 of the top 15 or 20 defenders in the league. That generates wins. That's going to generate wins. Talk about the contract and the salary and the age and stuff. I get all that. But Blazer fans who are like, what are we doing? This is what we're doing. It's a plan. I'm generally with it. That's all I got.
Hey, Dan, appreciate it. Like usual, Dan in Northeast on top of things. All right, there you go. There's a vote in favor of the deal for Jrue Holiday. We'll come back on the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhart will join me in the studio, and then Sean Hiken at 5:20. All right, it's now 4 o'clock. The big news here in town, the Trailblazers have traded Anthony Simons and a couple of second-round picks to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Jrue Holiday. That deal reported last night. Chris Burkhart going to join me in studio here in a couple of minutes to discuss, and then Sean Hiken at 5:20. Matisse Thybulle picked up his $11.5 million player option. He'll return with the team next year. Draft tomorrow. Our coverage will kick off with the Rip City Drive at 3 live from Dr. Jack's. Trailblazers block party. Draft edition will begin at 4:30 at the Rose Quarter Commons. Travis Demers and Francis Williams will anchor coverage from 4:30 until the end of the first round here on 620 Rip City Radio. Be sure to stop by the iHeart tent tomorrow at the block party for your chance to win a sweet Blazers prize pack, 4 Coors Light silver seats, an autographed Scoot Henderson jersey, and a signed Blazers pennant. Chris Burkhart in studio next here on the Rip City Drive. You know, I'd mentioned earlier that I was in the middle of making dinner, and I was going to sit down and enjoy my dinner last night, and all of a sudden I looked down at my phone, and it had blown up, gone nuclear because of the trade that had gone down with the Celtics and Trailblazers. Anthony Simons now in Boston, Jrue Holiday coming to town. What was your situation like last night, Chris? Chris Burkhart is in studio, host of Blazers Game Day, Fifth Quarter, and Blazers Courtside. That was not a surprise they made a move, but I didn't see Ant being the first one out, so I was a little bit surprised. Had to sit down and read and then contemplate what was going on in your life when you got news about the deal.
My situation is always crazy, but I had just laid down my youngest, and she likes when mom and dad are in the bedroom with her, so she's in her bed. I'm laying down on the floor on my computer, just getting ready to watch some YouTube or something, pass the time, and then my phone, look down, it's a Shams tweet. And all I see is like the Boston Celtics have agreed to trade so-and-so to poor. Like, that's where it ended. I saw poor. I'm like, oh, gosh, look it up. And then I'm like, okay, now I got to get to work. I'm trying to get the baby down and trying to make graphics and you're calling me. My wife laughed at me, Chad, because we have the little ring cam in there, basically a baby monitor for us. And she's laughing because she's like, I look in. The baby's rolling around. You have the computer on your lap. Phone's balanced on your shoulder because Chad's calling you. I'm like, that's the life of a sports guy.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love this time of year. I think here in Portland, we're always hoping for big moves or big trades or big free agent signings once July kicks off. And I think we all had to feel that we didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but we knew based on the composition of the roster with the 5 young guys that they're going to build around, Scoot, Shaden,
right,
Donovan Clingan, Tamani, and Denny, that with the veterans that were on the roster, something had to give. I thought Grant would be the first to go, and it turns out it's Anthony Simons. So there's one, and that happened before draft night. So I'm wondering, he might be able to get more done between now and the free agency period, which is awesome.
I definitely think he's going to want to at this point. I still think the runway is there to try to offload Jeremy Grant. But, yeah, that was the shocking part, because when you saw that there was a trade last night, and that's what Travis said with you last hour too, like, didn't expect that name attached just yet. Didn't expect that.
Okay, so let's start with this. What was your initial thought about the trade? The player that was coming in return, what they gave up, just your initial thought on the deal itself.
Well, I've been one of the rare ones feeding everybody that I just didn't think that Anthony Simons' value was as high as everyone else did, because he's just a shoot first guard, right? That's his main skill set. He's very good at it when he's good. We've seen the efficient Ant before, but he doesn't bring a ton else to the table that just lights up, whether it's passing the ball handling, shot creation, defense, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought where his value was, I thought they got a pretty good return in Jrue Holiday, because Jrue Holiday, I think, has a lot more value if you ever look to flip him, get rid of him. But I also looked at that as a deal that, like, I think this is a team that we saw at the end of last year, right, with Chauncey Billups and Joe Cronin, who said what, Chad? That their focus was now on the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right? That their focus was no more this tanking and rebuilding. It was finally moving forward.
And he said that on the final day of the regular season in that press conference with he and Chauncey.
Yeah. And so my initial reaction was, if that's what you're trying to do, then this is a great trade for that. because he's going to shore up your lineup. He's going to make you have a great defensive lineup. I've told everyone, and everyone on social media is starting to put it together, but like you can roll out lineups that are Jrue Holiday, Matisse Thybulle, Tumani Kamara, Denny Avdia, and Donovan Clingan. That is a 5-man, no weakness defensive rotation.
Yeah, that's terrific. And what I like about him, too, on offense, unlike Ant, Holiday is one of those guys that can make an impact without having the ball in his hands at all times.
He doesn't have to touch it. He doesn't have to touch it. He's a guy who can go create space. And I think there's enough gravity around him, too. I think he moves well off the ball, even though he's getting older. The knees aren't what they used to be. But he's just a smart basketball player. And I also think when you think about it this way, too, Chad. When you have Ant and you have Scoot and you have Denny, you have 3 guys who want to have the ball in their hand. Well, now you just got rid of one of them, and now you just got 2 guys who need to have the ball in their hand, right?
Yeah.
Because Jrue does not need to, and quite frankly, Jrue doesn't even need to go crazy offensively because defense is his calling card.
All right, what's your reaction? One of the biggest issues I think people have that I've noticed when they've reached out to me or on social media is the price. Over $30 million a year over the next couple of years, plus a player option for Jrue Holiday. Significantly more per year than Ant. And he's 8 years older. What's your take on the price?
I think the price is what it is. I think that if they continue to make moves, which we would hope that they do, that if they say they move off Jeremy Grant and his $30 million and they bring in 2 guys that are at 15 or something, all you've done is you've shifted that $30 million off of Jeremy Grant and you've put it on Jrue Holiday essentially, and Jrue Holiday has far more value to you. So there's still moves to be made. Now, if none of those other moves are made and you're still paying Jrue Holiday that big chunk of money and Jeremy Grant that big chunk of money and DeAndre Ayton that big chunk of money, then things get a little hairy. But no, I think there's still moves to make, and then at that point, I'm not worried as much about the money that Jrue Holiday is making. And it's not as if Jrue Holiday is going to be here for the next 7 years or anything. Like, it's just take this for what it is. And in the nutshell, in the vacuum, it's good.
Do you think this is the only move Joe's going to make between now and the free agency period?
Wow. That's a bajillion-dollar question, not $1 million question.
Well, the reason why I ask is because, we look at this move right now and we think one thing, but when he's done doing all the different things that he probably has plans to do, we may even look at this deal differently 2 weeks from now than we do right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why it's so hard to automatically just look at the deals and understand that, okay, this is it. Because it's not it. There could be the move out there that frees everything up, and you're like, oh, my goodness, now I like all this, right? And I think that he's going to try to, because I still think Jeremy Grant's a priority. I absolutely do. I think that Jeremy Grant wants to be a priority. I think you could tell by the body language and the way he was talking to the media at exit interviews. Like, anytime a player does the whole, like, yeah, we'll talk to my agent and see what our future is. Really? You couldn't just say right out that your future is here because you love it here? No, you're looking for your next door out.
Telephone number is 503-248-0620. What Chris and I would like is to get your thoughts on the deal. You can chime in, 503-248-0620. The other big question is, now I'll tell you how I looked at the deal when I first saw it. I was like, oh, this makes sense. Ant's now in Boston. This clears out room to have your young guys, Scoot and Shaden, starting in the backcourt. That was my initial thought. Like, it never occurred to me that Jrue Holiday would be coming in to start. And then I saw some people on social media analyzing the deal, and they had a different take on that. How do you see that in terms of who's going to start, who's not?
I would say that usually I'm alone on an island, but apparently you and I got shipwrecked on the same island, so at least we have some camaraderie here. Because I am with you. This trade never once crossed my mind that he's being brought in to start, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be completely realistic. If you brought in Jrue Holiday to start, well, then maybe you're not making calls to trade Jeremy Grant. Maybe you're making calls to trade Scoot Henderson, right? Because really? Hey, the one thing stopping you from getting in here is Anthony Simons. So we're going to trade him and bring in a guy to come over you. Now, I think that he could come in and maybe he starts for a few games and eases into things and we figure out. But no, I think that this is 100% a guy who can come in, play point guard, play shooting guard, just shore up all your rotations and open the door for Scoot. That never once crossed my mind.
All right, let's go out to the phones. Tall Tim wants to chime in on the trade. Hey, Tim, welcome to the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhart's here. Chad Doing's here. What's on your mind?
Oh, the gang's all here.
Yeah.
It's time to get back into Blazer action again with the draft tomorrow. All right, it's hard to digest, right? Because all of a sudden it's like, boom, here it is. But I'll say the one thing is say, oh, well, Chauncey's the mentor. No, you got to have a player on the team that's the mentor, because then he'll actually go out and show you how it gets done. So I think that for a teaching, professionalism locker room guy, you couldn't ask for a better player. And I don't know when Denny's contract is to be figured out, but we're in a little bit of a pickle there because we don't have his bird rights. And I think that Holiday's contract expires, especially if maybe he wants to play for a contender and he leaves after a couple of seasons, then you've got that money there to pay Denny, because we want to lose Denny. Does anybody want to lose Denny? So I'm thinking that's a good deal. And then like you were just saying, I just can't imagine Grant being here because, like you said, he's just going to be a pain in the you-know-what if he's not happy. So I'm thinking this is a pretty good deal, and I'm thinking, look, obviously the Orlando thing wasn't going to happen because they went all in on Bane, and you don't know what else was out there. Right? You have these. You can make all the fantasy trades you want, but I'm kind of thinking this was a good deal. And if they had gotten a younger player, then there would be like this whole pecking order thing going on. In this case, he's clear, right? It's pretty clear that he's not the future of the franchise, but he's a key piece to show the team what it takes to play good defense, to be able to consistently be efficient offensively. So I'm kind of warmed up on the deal. I think it's a good deal.
All right, appreciate that, Tall Tim. Thank you so much. And with Jeremy Grant, I'm not even worried about him being difficult. He got paid, so I think he's probably good with where he sits. But the most important thing to me is just to continue to bring clarity to the roster.
Yeah.
If Jeremy Grant is moved, then you clear out the room and the space to where Denny Avdia and Tamani Kamara can play and play big minutes uninterrupted without Jeremy Grant being here.
Not only that, Chad, you look at the draft tomorrow. If they intend to use that 11th pick, you look at most of the mocks and you look at the guys who will likely be available. A lot of them are power forward centers or small forward power forwards, right? I think you're going to want to get them on the court as well behind Denny and two and everything else you have. So there's still a lot of moving parts there for sure.
All right, 503-248-0620. Let's go out to the phones again. Mitch in Jersey. Mitch, my friend, welcome to the show. Chris Burkhart is here. I am here. What are your thoughts on the deal?
How's it going, Chad? Chris, thanks for taking my call. I don't really like it. What's wrong with having young players? You have two veterans, and you paid them a lot of money, especially Grant and DeAndre Ayton. Come on, are we trying to Boston? They seem to be crying. Probably, I don't know if you have looked in your news. I just read a trade. Mets get a first-round pick. Porzingis goes to Atlanta from Boston. So you're helping you're helping the enemy there. Boston has enough rings. Don't make it easy for them to come around. They'll be rebuilding. But I thought those three guards, they're good. I know you have to pay. That's the nature of the business. And one more thing. I guess you guys are sorry that the Dodgers bought the Lakers instead of somebody else.
Hey, I think the Lakers are going to be fine with that Dodger group in there. They're pretty solid, Mitch. With the Celtics, what's the trade now? So Porzingis is on his way to where?
He is on his way to Atlanta. So they're trading him out to Atlanta. Trey Mann and the number 22 overall pick going back to let me read this out because Boston got Yang. It's all messed up. It's a 3-team deal, right? It's a 3-team deal, which always makes you go, oh, yeah, that's crazy. What's going on? But here is the skinny of it now that I have it popped up. But, yeah, Atlanta, Brooklyn, and Boston, 3-team deal. Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick to the Hawks. Terrence Mann and the number 22 pick go to the Nets. And Gorgeous Yang and a second-rounder go to the Celtics. This is a move made purely for Boston to get under that second apron, which is where they are now. Gives them a little more wiggle room. They still have some of their own guys that they're going to want to shore up. They're probably going to bring back Al Horford on a very team-friendly deal because, oh my gosh, that guy can still play, which is wild. Then the Nets get some capital, which they need as a young rebuilding team. So, yeah, I don't think they necessarily helped Boston get better in this trade. They gave them financial flexibility in the long run. But, yeah, that's the deal there. Kristaps Porzingis on the move.
All right, so if we look at what Boston did last night with the Holiday trade, today with Porzingis, salary dump. They're dumping money.
They're making money moves, right? They got to get in there. They don't want to be hurt by that apron, and then try to see what they can do to stay competitive, with likely an entire year with Jason Tatum out, right? And continue to build this thing the right way without having to blow it up.
Well, I'm glad you're in studio with me. You're smarter than I am. So when we come back, you can explain the Trailblazers being hard capped on one of the aprons or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Let me do some research here.
Okay, good. So we'll get into that. 503-248-0620. We, and I include Michael Shacker in that, we would love to hear your thoughts on the deal. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And what are your reasons as to why you do or do not like the deal? 503-248-0620. Hope you're enjoying this fabulous Tuesday afternoon. Don't forget, tomorrow, draft coverage launches from Dr. Jack's at 3. And that will go until 4:30, the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhart, Sean Hiken, Travis Demers, and Francis Williams will take over the coverage at 4:30, all the way through the end of the first round of Joe Cronin's presser, which I can't wait to hear. And then the Trailblazers Block Party Draft Edition will kick off at 4:30. Stop by the iHeart tent and enter for your chance to win the Blazers prize pack that we have put together. Scoot autographed jersey, 4 Coors Light silver seats to a game this year, and a signed Blazers pennant. More with Chris Burkhart, 503-248-0620. Your take on the trade. We'd love to hear from you. You got the Rip City Drive. And I'm not going to lie. I don't like to wade too deep into the waters of the new CBA and the
It's a
first
little
and second
crazy.
apron. It's madness. I cringe when I hear people that pretend like they know everything about it, because I'm not even sure some of the teams know everything about it yet, as they still figure out the murky waters. But one of the concerns with the deal for the Blazers is that when they take back the money, they're hard capped. Can you explain this situation, my friend?
Yes, I can do that. But first off, before we dive into that, did you see the absolute terrible news for us, Chad, that Larry Kuhn is retiring from updating the CBA frequently asked questions website?
He is?
He's mailing it in. He's done with it. It's like updated now to the most it's been updated, but he's walking away from it. And that thing is like a Bible for sports contracts. He has done so good at keeping that thing up. So hopefully maybe someone can fill his shoes there. But back to your question, Chad, right? You're asking about the apron and what that means for the Blazers. Well, as a first apron team, there's a lot of rules that come into play. Some of those rules, you're not allowed to acquire a player in a sign and trade deal, not allowed to use pre-existing trade exceptions, not allowed to take more money back in a trade, not allowed to sign a player waived during the regular season that had a pre-existing salary of $12 million, and there's a couple other deals there. The Blazers in this deal, their first apron team in this deal, are bringing in more money, which violates that rule. Not allowed to take back more money in a trade. And if that happens, a team is hard capped at the apron. And so the apron is 178.7. So they become hard capped. Now there's some interesting moves there, though, because as our Trailblazers insider, Sean Hiken, has been reporting, he is saying, to clarify, the Blazers could make the news official today if they wanted to, but I've been told that it's likely that they'll hold off until the 6th of July in case it gets expanded to fold in other transactions. One example, if they do the trade as is, Portland becomes hard capped because they took in more money than they sent out. If they do another move where they take in less, they could combine them into one transaction to finesse it and not trigger the hard cap. So that's where you start looking at those deals, right? Like a Jeremy Grant. Do they trade Jeremy Grant out and then take in far less money in doing so and balance those things out, turn it into one 3-team deal, one 4-team deal, whatever it is, and make that happen so they don't get hard caps? So that's why you haven't heard any official signals or anything, because there's a lot of things waiting for some dominoes to fall for the Blazers.
All right, 503-248-0620. So, again, with other moves that are potentially going to happen, that number could change in terms of salary, which would get them out of that position where they're hard capped.
Yep.
Okay.
So
that's good.
That's it right there. And you don't want to be hard capped, because that just puts all sorts of just regulations on top of you, and just kind of, for lack of better terms, just kind of screws you over for a minute. So you don't want that if you don't have to. And again, I think that's why they're waiting, because there might be some more moves coming down the pipe.
You know, I was wondering about Jeremy Grant. I wonder what they could get in return for Grant. I wonder if they could get like a couple of players. Could you move Grant and get a couple of players where the money pretty much equals out, but maybe you get a couple of guys who can help in different ways on the roster? That's kind of what I would hope for if you move Grant.
I think you could, right? I don't know where that team is or who it is, but again, for this thing to work out, like say you go and you find a guy who's, I think this was about a $5 million difference. So if Jeremy's making close to 30, can you find a guy who's making 10 and a guy who's making 15, and that's the deal you want to do? And boom, here you go. And so maybe you look at those teams that are not in the first apron because they don't want to be hard capped in doing that deal either. So again, there's just so much that goes into that. But I do think there's definitely more to come, so Portland can try to finesse that a little bit.
All right, if you're just joining us, Boston, Atlanta, and Brooklyn are finalizing a 3-team trade that Chris mentioned. It sends Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick to the Hawks, Terrence Mann and Atlanta's number 22 pick to the Nets, and Georges Niang and a second-rounder to the Celtics. So Boston right now is in a cost-cutting path. They got rid of Jrue Holiday for Ant last night. They get off Kristaps Porzingis today, so they're looking to cut costs. NBA draft is coming up tomorrow. With the move, like, what do you anticipate now? What are you looking like? Where's your mind at when it comes to the draft tomorrow and the Blazers sitting there with the number 11 pick? Is it just focused on what player they're going to acquire at number 11? Is it potential deals that could be coming down the pipe tomorrow? Like, where are you at?
For me, I'm going into this one completely looking at the draft and what player that they could acquire at 11. I think that there's guys there that could help them. Carter Bryant's one of them, right? A guy who can play both sides of the floor, very good defensively, kind of fits that mold, right? Derek Queen is another one. If he's going to be available, I like him a lot. So again, that's where I'm looking, because going into the draft, that's what I expect. Now, I'm also looking at those other avenues because you got to be ready for them to happen, right? Are they going to pull those draft night trades? Like, again, Malcolm Brogdon, Denny Avdia, right? Like, is that going to happen? You got to be prepared. But if you're asking me just what I'm expecting tomorrow, right now, I'm expecting number 11 to be picked by the Blazers. And then maybe there's a trade along the way too. But I think as we go in that the Blazers are looking at that and they're looking to add via the draft.
And then with players, if they take in the draft, everyone's consensus, and I would agree with this, you just take the best player available, right?
I think you have to. You have to take best player available. Positions of need are important as well. But I think in the draft, it bears out. Just take the best player available. And then maybe I think it's also smart. You have that player in tow. You took the best player available, and maybe 5 picks later, you hear a trade that, so-and-so is traded with the Blazers for the rights to the player that they drafted at 11 because you took the best player available. So there's incentives to do that as well.
Do they have any glaring weaknesses in terms of position and need right now?
I think the position of need is still the forward position, because I think if you're looking at this roster kind of as is right now, you got Jrue Holiday who's going to be able to play the 1 and the 2. Who's the starter? Who's the backup? We could debate that to the cows come home, but there's a little bit of depth there. I still think they could use a guy who can shoot well. But if you get off of Jeremy Grant, right, where's your depth at the power forward position, right? It's just not there. So I think you're drafting that guy who can either play the 4 and the 5 or the 3 and the 4. That's why a guy like Derek Queen is intriguing, because he's a kind of a smaller center, but he can play both power forward and center. Because, quite frankly, Chad, if you end up getting off of DeAndre Ayton at some point and you can't trust Robert Williams, you're going to need that depth behind Donovan Clingan as well. So those guys who are versatile can play multiple positions, but I'm looking at shooters and I'm looking at forwards.
Well, I can tell you right now, I don't trust Rob Will.
No.
I love Robert Williams, but his body is not reliable.
No, and it's not even us trying to slight him when we say we can't trust him, because quite frankly, healthy this year, I thought he was the most entertaining center on the roster. Defensively, we love Donovan Clingan, but defensively healthy, Robert Williams is probably better, right? Because he can move, he can get out, he can guard the multiple positions, not just around the rim. Dude has bounce. You can't trust him to play games, though, man. It was injury after injury, and it was different injuries, and that's just the unfortunate part. As they always say, the best ability is availability, right? And he's not available very often.
He was almost out of my mind because of the injuries, but if he were, this is a big if he were to come back healthy and be able to contribute on a regular basis this season, that's another defensive-minded guy that jumps right into the lineup.
Oh, absolutely. Right into the lineup, changes things tremendously for you. And I think you're also underselling the fact that, Matisse Thybulle, I thought he was wonderful, but what he played, like 12 games last year, right? Like, he didn't come on till late, and he comes back in his first game, he has the game-winning block, right? Like, his defense was phenomenal, and he got in a groove by the end of the year. So now you have that healthy, ready to go. Like, there's things here that are very, very intriguing that I'm getting excited for, quite frankly, for this Trailblazer team.
All right. Anthony Simons now in Boston. Jrue Holiday is on his way to Portland. The majority of fans and people I know don't like the deal. You and I like the deal, but what is the biggest hang-up? Were people expecting more for Ant?
I think that's the hang-up right there, quite frankly, is people were expecting more. I think Blazer fans are always expecting more. Laker fans, Timberwolves fans, you're always expecting more from your team. This one doesn't surprise me. I think they got fair value out of them. People freaked out about them trading 2 second-round picks, which I do not care about. As I
second-round picks don't mean jack.
As I joked with you on the phone last night, you could probably go get a second-round pick on eBay if you wanted to, right? Just bid high enough, they'll give you a second-round pick. You might even get Adam Silver to give you one just because he feels bad for you. So I'm not worried about that. But I do think that people thought they could get more. They look at what Orlando gave up for Desmond Bane, right? They're like, Memphis got an absolute haul. 4 first-round picks, and Portland can't even get one? Desmond Bane, probably a better scorer all the way around, definitely a better defender all the way around. And again, the guys who play both sides of the floor tend to get more in these type of deals, right? So there's a lot to it, but I think that's what irritates them the most is the fact that they didn't get more from him, and then there's a lot of people who didn't view it like you and I, who automatically viewed it as that guy is going to be the starter. It's just going to put another handicap on Scoot, and there's a lot of people who want to see Scoot start. And again, I still think he's going to be the starter.
The other news today, Matisse Thybulle picked up his player option, $11.5 million. He'll be back. Did you expect him to pick up the player option?
100%. I expected him to pick that up because if that guy, as good as he looked in those dozen games he played, Chad, he basically missed a large chunk of the year before dealing with the injuries, missed almost the entire year. If he didn't pick that up, I don't know what the market is for him in free agency, right? This year, I think, is huge for him. He picks up the option. He's coming into this season healthy. He's going to play. He has a chance to earn another good contract, right? So I fully expected him to pick this up because I don't know if he was going to get $11 million or a 4-year deal or whatever it was going to be on the open market.
All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Well, you mentioned a saying earlier that my grandpa used to use all the time. When exactly do the cows come home? Like my grandpa would always say these little things, these sayings, and I was like, well, when do the cows come home?
They go out to get a pack of cigarettes, and they end up at the original steer meat market, so maybe they don't come home.
Yeah, that's true. So like some of the horses that go to the glue factory, right?
Right.
Oh, my goodness. And the other thing that's inappropriate, too, my daughter, she didn't tell me she was going, but somehow she wound up at In-N-Out, and she's sending me pictures of her food. I do not feel like people should taunt others with pictures if they're going to go to In-N-Out. It's like, keep that stuff to yourself, man.
Yeah, it's kind of rude. It just makes you hungry.
Do you like In-N-Out?
I do.
You say it with a little bit of pause, though.
I do because I like In-N-Out when I'm like, I like the novelty of In-N-Out. So I'd always hit In-N-Out when I was on the road and I had a lot of time to kill, right? I'm in Los Angeles. It's an off day. I'm sitting at a hotel with nothing to do. Yeah, I'll go walk down to In-N-Out and sit in a line for a half hour. But when it's right by my house or on the way back home from a long night of championships, I'm not sitting in that line for 45 minutes. I just want to get home.
I never go through the drive-thru. It's too chaotic.
I always just park my car and go in because at least while I'm waiting, I can refill my drink a few times.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, you're right. The second-round picks in the NBA, they're like refills at In-N-Out or a basket of fries at Red Robin. You can come buy it with no problem. You can buy them for crying out loud.
Right. Yeah,
Paul Allen would buy second-round picks all the time. You can throw up the cash and get it done.
Yeah, I mean, this would be like in the NFL draft, right? If you're upset because you had two seventh-round picks, and you're like, yeah, you traded your starting running back and 2 7th-rounders. Oh my gosh, we gave around 7th-rounders. Well, it's the last round of the draft.
Who cares? Was I talking to you last night? I was talking to someone last night, and they made a good point too that the second-round picks may decrease in value moving into the future because some of these guys that are in college basketball that could go to the NBA, but they're projected to be a second-round pick. Why not stay at school and make more money in NIL dollars? And then come out when you have a chance to pop back into the first round.
Yeah, that was last week on Courtside Monday when we had Torrey Jones on, and he brought that up. And I hadn't even thought about that, but he was talking about how, in time, and granted, those seconds they just gave out were a few ways off, that those second-rounders might actually start to see a little bit more value because you're going to start seeing a lot more guys who went back to college because they weren't going to be a lottery pick. So they're sitting there and they're, okay, do I want to be a second-round pick where I can sign a 2-way deal and go play in the G League, or do I want to go back to Baylor and make $3 million a year because of NIL money, right? The answer is probably going to want to go back to college if you're that guy. And then once you exhaust your eligibility in college and you're forced to go in the NBA draft, you're going to see a lot more guys who are refined, who are in that second round, who have been 3-4-year college guys, not a ton of just freshmen one and done. So I think you're going to start seeing more value because you're going to start seeing more ready-to-go players in the second round.
All right, 503-248-0620. Scotty Bethune says, Chad, you eat In-N-Out? Well, not all the time, but when I go, I just have a plain hamburger with no sauce or anything on it, and that's what I do. I just have a plain hamburger, get a Diet Coke, and call it good. And then I always get a the little paper container of the they have those banana peppers there, too. But I think the In-N-Out burger, the plain burger with no cheese or any of the sauce on it, it's only like 300 calories. And that way I can
That's
pretend
not
like
bad.
I'm having an out.
That's not bad.
It's not the same as doing like a double-double or...
Oh, I walk in, double, give me the fries. I don't care. I'm here. Let's enjoy it. It's also why my scale number keeps going up. So
The other reason why I like In-N-Out is that it's very cost-effective for kids.
yes.
The pricing is amazing.
Yes, and some of the other places, oh boy, not so much.
Oh, it's painful. Like Burgerville?
Oh, I walked into Burgerville the other day because there's one right across the street from OSA now. And let me tell you what, it was delicious. It was worth it. But I'm sitting here, I'm like, I paid as much for this burger and fries as if I went over to like a Killer Burger or a McMinimans or a nice restaurant. Like, this is like $16 for a burger and fries at a fast food joint.
Yeah. They should have a payday loan place inside of their restaurant so you can get cash to be able to pay for dinner. It's
Now I
crazy.
know why Mom never wanted to take me there. Also,
Yeah.
as a kid, I also wanted the halibut fish and chip, like the most expensive thing on the
Yeah, of
menu.
course.
So come on.
Me too.
Can I get
Yeah.
the halibut fish and chip and one of those expensive fresh strawberry milkshakes, Mom? No wonder she charges me when I go into the meat market.
Gosh, I was always getting turned down by my parents. My ideas never worked. All right, we'll come back. You can jump on board. What's your take on the deal? Do you like it? Do you not like it? 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive. Boy, I'm quickly falling in love with Tyrese Halliburton. He said he would absolutely do it again if given the option to play and deal with the torn Achilles. It's amazing. Like, I don't know what you do in that situation, Burkhart, where if you have an opportunity to win an NBA championship and you know you're putting yourself at risk, how do you walk away from your team and say, I'm going to take it easy and play it safe?
I don't think there's any player that would. That's why the doctors and the team needs to step in. But Game 7 of the championship, it's also gambling, right? You're like, okay, if I can get through this one more game, we're going to be good. And it's just unfortunate that it caught up to him, man. But that mentality, I get it. I think there's a lot of people who would do that.
I would do the same thing. Because, the crazy thing about sports, and one of the things I love about sports is, like, there's no guarantees.
Right.
Like, you don't know if you're going to get another look at it, another chance to be in that position where you have a chance to play for a championship.
Sports are special. Sports are special. I always tell people, it's like, everyone's like, if you had a time machine, where would you go back in time? I'm like, I'd go back to high school. That's what I would do. They're like, oh, you liked high school that much? I'm like, no, high school was boring. But I'd be able to play baseball again. Organized baseball, traveling around the state, playing for state championships.
How fun was that?
It was amazing. It was the best. Playing sports was the best. Give me a time machine. I want to go play baseball.
I remember, game days with, like, basketball games. Like, playing in a game in an organized sport is awesome.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, heck, I wish I could go back in a time machine and relive some of my favorite moments with the teams I love.
Mm-hmm.
To experience that ride again. Heck, the Blazers going to the Western Conference Finals back in 2019. Like, that whole ride was a great experience.
That was a pretty fun
ride.
one. That was a fun one.
Yeah, I was thinking back the other day, like, I remember, when Nurk got hurt, I thought, well, they're done. And then Enes Kanter came in, and remember how great he played through the first couple of rounds of the postseason?
Oh, he was phenomenal because offensively he was so similar to Nurkic in the pick and roll, so they could still run their normal offense without skipping a beat. He was wonderful, and he was getting like 20 rebounds a game. He couldn't guard anything. Like, he could stand in front of a wall that doesn't move, and the wall would blow by him. But, man, offensively in the pick and roll and on the glass, he was great.
I remember when he had that injury or he got hurt or something in, I think, the Denver series, and there was that picture of him floating around online where he's, like, on the table back in the training room, and he's, like, in agony, right? And it turns out he was perfectly okay. I just remember Evan Turner tweeting out hella drama.
Yeah, right. Yes, that's for sure. But that was a great series because that's where I remember. It's funny because I sent you and Travis the photo a few weeks ago, just going through my phone is clearing up space. But it's like that. You and Travis were doing the Rip City Drive from the NBC Sports studio down there in the Bay Area, and me and the Godfather showed up, and that was fun.
Yeah, good times. Yeah. The time machine would not be so bad. Chris Burkhart in studio. Draft coverage is going to kick off tomorrow at 3 from Dr. Jack's, 3 to 4:30. Chris Burkhart, Sean Hiken, and then Travis Demers and Francis Williams are going to take over from 4:30 until the end of the night. And then at that point, you and Sean will be posted up over at the practice facility.
That's right. We're going to go through that hour and a half. So if you show up early, come say hi. And then, we're going to bounce to the practice facility. We're going to have your coverage all night long, so make sure you're following Chris J. Burkhart at Hiken and at Rip City Radio 620. We'll have live video when the trades happen and picks happen. And, of course, hopefully if they use that pick, they're going to have a Zoom availability, so we'll be able to talk to the newest Trailblazer. We'll get content out there. And then we'll talk to Joe Cronin when it's all said and done and the draft is wrapped up. So plenty of content coming tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I can't wait for that Joe Cronin press conference. I want to hear him talk about the deal that went down last night.
Yeah, and Joe, I like Joe. I've talked to him just a very few times. I think you've probably talked to him more than I have. But I like Joe because, man, like, Neil Olshey was always kind of like a little bit smug when he was around you, right? It made it uncomfortable to talk to him, and half the time he was belittling you when he was. And I've always felt that Joe is a pretty straight shooter. Like, yeah, he'll give you GM speak here and there, what GM doesn't, but I've never felt that, like, Joe's just looking at me and lying to my face when he talks about, why they did things. So I enjoy talking to Joe Cronin.
Yeah, I'm totally down with the guy. He's approachable. He's accessible. He's a good dude. And I love his story because he started out as an intern with the franchise and worked his ass off, and now he's running the basketball side of things.
Living the dream, man. Absolutely living the dream, working his way up. Like that's a guy that regardless of what you think of certain trades, that's a guy that Portland fans should be rooting for every single day of the week, right?
Who was it that told me? I think it was Kyle Ratoza who told me he came in, was an intern in that first year the same time as Joe Cronin.
That's wild. That's pretty wild.
That's pretty cool, though. There's a lot of guys like that in sports who started out as a ball boy or doing yeoman's work with like a video coordinator. I know Eric Spoelstra was the same thing. These guys that just grind and then they work their way into.
Yeah, I think Chris Haynes was writing articles for like Slam magazine or something like that for free. Like he
and
was
being
just
a security guard.
Yeah, and a security guard. Like I want to get in on this. I'm gonna write just to get in, and then got in with NBC Sports as a reporter, our first insider there at what was then Comcast Sports Northwest. Right before I got there. Then I got there, worked a year with him. And next thing you know, he's bouncing to Cleveland to cover LeBron. And then he's down in the Bay. And then he's one of the biggest news breakers out there now. It's phenomenal to watch guys work pay off, man.
Yeah, no question. It's pretty awesome. All right, draft tomorrow. I'm excited to see what other moves might come.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that the moves that have happened already. I mean, we haven't even talked about CJ McCollum got traded, right? Jordan Poole to New Orleans, CJ McCollum to Washington. You just had the big 3-team trade with Boston, Jrue Holiday and the Blazers. And again, I think there's plenty of more to come, especially as these teams navigate this CBA and try to get under the first and second apron and move around. So I'm very, very intrigued as to what's going to happen tomorrow.
All right, Sean Hiken is going to join us coming up at 5:20. And again, tomorrow the draft coverage starts at 3 from Dr. Jack's. Rip City Drive goes until 4:30. The Blazers Block Party Draft Edition will kick off at 4:30. Make sure you stop by the iHeart tent so you can enter to win our prize pack. 4 Coors Light silver seats, an autographed Scoot Henderson jersey, a signed Blazers pennant, and you can enter to win that. The Blazers are going to have blow-up games on site. The Rip City remix are going to be on hand. DJ OG1's going to be bumping some music. There'll be face painting, and there's also going to be sampling inside of Dr. Jack's for some cold, frosty beverages, including Coors Light.
I still want to see DJ OG2.
What is his son's name?
DJ OG2.
Is it OG2?
I'm pretty sure.
I think we met him up on the 300 level up there at the Pines.
That was great.
OG2. I think that's what it was. I just couldn't remember exactly how to say it, but yeah, his son is cool.
I was like, "Are you 2 because like you're the second one? Or are you 2 like 2.0 because you're better?" He just laughed at me.
Yeah, he didn't answer the question.
Which that meant because he's better. I know how that is.
Well, dude, thanks for coming by, man. That was fun.
You asked me to. When have I said no?
Chris always says yes. I need a girlfriend like that. Yes, Chad, we can do that. All right, big thanks to Chris Burkhart, Sean Hiken at 5:20. Chris, we'll be on tomorrow at 3 live from Dr. Jack's. Get out there and see him. All right, what's up? 5 o'clock, Chad here. Don't forget the draft coverage tomorrow. We'll kick off on Rip City Radio at 3 with the Rip City Drive live from Dr. Jack's. The Trailblazers going to have a sweet block party draft edition. It kicks off at 4:30 at the Rose Quarter Commons. DJ Ojuan's going to be on hand bumping some music. Face painters, blow-up games for the kids. Rip City Remix are going to be on hand. You can also stop by the iHeart tent and enter for your chance to win a Blazers prize pack, including an authentic autographed Scoot Henderson jersey, and a signed Blazers pennant, and 4 Coors Light silver seats to an upcoming game. Travis Demers and Francis Williams will anchor coverage of the draft from 4:30 until the end of the first round with Joe Cronin's press conference. Matisse Thybulle picked up his $11.5 million option. He's back with the team next year. And the big news, of course, Anthony Simons on his way to Boston, along with 2 second-round picks in exchange for Jrue Holiday. Give us dirty laundry. Kick them when they're down. All right, it's time for some goodies. It's a Hops Ticket Tuesday. This is for your chance to sit in the Rip City Radio row. I'm sorry, I enjoy Don Henley. All right, the game's coming up on Saturday. It's going to be June 28th at Hillsborough Ballpark. I think the weather's going to be nice. So we'll make this very simple. If you would like to check out the Hillsborough Hops, they'll take on Spokane, the Indians, this weekend at Hillsborough Ballpark. Call now. We'll take the first caller, 503-248-0620, 503-248-0620. If you want to go to the Hops game against Spokane, call now, 503-24. I want to hear from a baseball fan. Call now, 503-248-0620. Show me your hops, 503-248-0620. First caller will get a 4-pack of tickets to sit in the Rip City Radio row over at Hillsborough Ballpark, 503-248-0620. Now, coming up here in approximately 15 minutes, we'll be joined by our Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, Sean Hiken. I want to check in with Sean to get his take on the deal with Jrue Holiday coming to Portland. Anthony Simons, his Trailblazer tenure is over. He's on his way to Boston. The Trailblazers also kicked out 2 second-round picks in the deal. And we got the draft coming up tomorrow. The draft, I would say we'll probably get underway around 5. Our coverage with the Rip City Drive will kick off at 3 from Dr. Jack's, and that will run up until 4:30. And then Travis Demers, the voice of your Trailblazers, and Francis Williams, Trailblazers analysts, will anchor the draft coverage all the way through the end of the first round. And there you have it. And the Trailblazers block party draft edition will kick off at 4:30 from the Rose Quarter Commons, and a lot of different sweet activities going on there, plus beer sampling inside of Dr. Jack's. So basically everything you want in one shop. 503-248-0620. Your chance to check out the Hillsborough Hops. You can call now. Every Tuesday through the baseball season is Hops Ticket Tuesday here on the Rip City Drive. I thought I would kind of summarize my thoughts on the deal that went down with the Trailblazers and Celtics last night. I'm not sure where you were at, but it was a typical summer evening for me. I had gotten home from work. Traffic was a disaster. I was busy trying to feed the dog. You know, feeding puppy shots is not an easy process. I got to prepare the food. I've got to play with him to get him to eat his food. And then finally, after he's done, I can worry about myself and get my own dinner taken care of. It's a big pain every single night. Puppy shots, I love him to death, but so he can't just eat dog food. No, it's got to be prepared food. And then I got to play with him to get him to eat his food. And it's been like that ever since he was young. So I prepared my dinner. I was going to sit down and eat. And all of a sudden I looked down at my phone. I'm like, what in the flip is going on? My phone went nuclear. Absolute chaos everywhere. Well, I started thinking about the deal. The first thing that went to my mind was, well, this makes sense from the standpoint that you're clearing out some room to open up space for your young backcourt. Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, who are part of the 5 young guys who are the foundation of this franchise moving forward. Scoot, Shaedon, Denny, Tamani, and Donovan Clingan. It never even occurred to me that Jrue Holiday would come in and be the starter from day one. But I have seen people who think that that could be the case. What I love about Jrue Holiday is all the things that you love about him. He's known as a guy around the NBA who is a terrific teammate, a great locker room guy. He's like one of the best human beings in the NBA. So instantly you upgrade the locker room from that standpoint. High character guy, but also he fits the mentality of the head coach. What do we know about Chauncey Billups? Well, he's a defensive-minded, tough guy. That's the way he played. That's the way he coaches, and he demands that from his players. So Jrue Holiday is going to come in and match what we already have from Denny Avdia, Tamani Kamara, Matisse Thybulle, Donovan Clingan, all the guys that want to get after it. Two-way guys that defend, are aggressive, and can create havoc. And now they've got more versatility with Jrue Holiday. Also, if you compare him to Simons, he's also one of those guys who he doesn't need the basketball in his hands to make an impact. There are a lot of guys in the NBA that have to have the ball in their hands to be impactful. That's not the case for Jrue Holiday, which is nice. He can shoot the 3 ball. He is a little bit older at age 35, but the Blazers are trying to take that next step and contend for playoff position. And he's someone that's going to come in and help because they're going to be better defensively. And they're going to be able to create more turnovers, which will result in easier buckets. Now, offensively, right now, the team does need shooting. My guess is they'll be addressing that come draft night tomorrow and also via trades and through the free agency period. They're not done continuing to reshape this roster. What I like is that it's taking on more the image of their coach and Chauncey Billups. And with Anthony Simons, once they drafted Scoot and Shaedon, I think we knew that this time was coming. Now, I thought the first vet that would be moved out would be Jeremy Grant. It turns out to be Anthony Simons. Now, the Celtics, they could probably use Ant to be able to make shots and be a shot creator without Jason Tatum, who's out with the Achilles tear. But more than anything else, especially in combination with the move of Kristaps Porzingis going to Atlanta today, the Celtics were a big spending team, and they're trying to save money right now to put themselves in a position to have more financial flexibility. But I do think that Holiday helps them with their pursuit of being one of the top defensive teams in the NBA. He's going to have a big impact on the locker room and the overall culture. And in terms of the price, the advantage of having young guys like Scoot, Shaedon, Clingan, Denny, and Tamani who aren't making a lot of money is that you can take on, a guy with a bigger price. And keep in mind, we look at the deal one way today, but with the combination of other moves that are probably coming, we may look at it even differently here in a couple of days. Let's go out to the phones. Let's go to Salem. John is out there, wants to comment on the deal. John, welcome to the Rip City Drive. I appreciate your time. What do you think about the move?
Well, I think it's all going to depend on these assistant coaches that we've brought in and whether or not they can implement some kind of a new offense in Portland, because our offense is known for being extremely simplistic. And you had a 26-year-old athlete in Anthony who could get to the rim pretty much whenever he wanted to, get his own shot. And then you've got a 35-year-old who is more of a spot-up shooter. So I'm curious to see how the offense is going to change with the addition of Jrue.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, John. And what I think we're going to see, I think it's going to mean more and more opportunities for Denny Avdia and the other young guys to be able to have the ball and to be able to, facilitate and create offensively. But we're going to see Denny with more freedom. We saw that last year. I think Denny's going to, have a lot to do with that. I think we're going to see the continued emergence of Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson. That's really what it's going to come down to. Scoot, Shaden, and Denny, really being the focal point. And the great thing is Holiday at times can be the point guard, can handle the basketball and initiate the offense, but more importantly, Denny Avdia. and creating an opportunity for the young guys to continue to grow and develop, especially on that end. Let's go back out to the phones. David, who is in Salem, let's get his thoughts on the deal. David, I appreciate your call. What are your thoughts on the deal?
I'm a little disappointed at this point. I liked Anthony Simons. He's 26 compared to 35 for Jrue Holiday. I think Anthony's a better offensive player, maybe not defensively, but anytime you look at a 35-year-old player and, 9-10 years age difference, that is a lot, Chad. And it concerns me. You want to get, I think, for the Blazers, younger and bigger. And they really don't do that with Jrue. And even if he was 10 years younger, I'd say probably yes, because of his defensive capabilities. But I just don't see it, Chad. I think he's more expensive than Anthony Simons going forward, and what you do with him going forward, you're probably not going to be able to trade him. You own him, basically, kind of like Jeremy Grant, with his contract. I just don't understand it, and maybe I just don't have the expertise to understand it. What do you think?
Well, I like the move, but I understand your concern. My biggest concern with, Jrue Holiday is the age. And he's coming off a year where he dealt with some nagging injuries. So it's going to be important for Holiday to get his body right and to get healthy so he can be a contributor. And if he's healthy and he has a bounce back year, then, we'll see at times some sensational play from him. There's no question. But with Anthony, he just didn't really fit into the future of the Trailblazers. One, because he's a one-dimensional player, not a defensive player, so he doesn't fit the mold of what Billups is trying to accomplish. And some of Ant's offensive numbers were in a bit of a decline last year. And I'm a big Ant fan. I like him a lot. But I want guys who are two-way players. And for the Blazers trying to take that next step and to really take a next step with another guy that's going to help them define what they're doing defensively, I think that's great. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Sean Hiken, our Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, is going to join us next. We'll get his take on the move and what he's hearing here on the Rip City Drive. All right, our coverage tomorrow will kick off at 3. Live from Dr. Jackson. One of the individuals will be a part of that. It's our Trailblazer insider, Sean Hiken with the Rose Garden Report, and he joins the show once again. Sean, I appreciate your time, buddy. I was just in the process of fixing dinner, sitting down to eat, and all of a sudden I noticed my phone had blown up. And what was your reaction when you got the news about the deal last night?
Didn't see that one coming. And I mean, Chad, this is a thing that you and I have talked about many times over the last couple of months, whether it's the trade that sent Damian Lillard to Milwaukee or the trade for Denny Avdia last year on draft night. This is not a front office that really lets trades that they're actually working on get out ahead of time or lets any, leaks or rumors or anything. So I just, when I saw that it was happening, that was just kind of my reaction. It was like, okay, I didn't have that one.
Yeah, no question. The majority of people who have reached out to me or responded, no one really seems to like the trade. So I want you to make a case for the Trailblazers right now on why this is a good deal.
Well, you can't really judge this trade in a vacuum until you kind of see what else they do this offseason. Everything about this trade feels like it's part one of something, of whatever they're going to do. I would have to think that's going to involve Jeremy Grant in some way. But if you want to just make a case for this one purely just on its own merits without taking that into account, I would say the couple of things to say. One, the Blazers have made it clear, they said this, Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups both said this at their end of season press conference, that they're not really interested in being bad and rebuilding anymore, and they want to take the next step in terms of being competitive for the playoffs. And Jrue Holiday is the kind of player that you trade for when that's what your goal is, because that's the type of player that he is, and that's the type of teams that he's been on. And then the other part of it is that if you take Anthony Simons out of the picture, now there's no doubt that, they're giving Scoot Henderson the keys, which I think is something that everybody, who is following this team and, wants to see what he can do without kind of that question about his minutes or the logjam or, Anthony Simons coming into this upcoming season playing for a contract, what Scoot would be able to do. And so now this kind of gives him a little bit more of a runway to be able to do that. So that's kind of I would say the rationale as it stands right now. But again, I don't think this is the only move that they're going to make this offseason. It sure feels like there's going to be something else big happening at some point, whether that's in the next 24 hours before the draft starts or later this week or next week, before, when free agency starts on June 30th. It does seem like this is the first of, what could be bigger changes coming up.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment, no question. One of the big concerns I'm seeing from fans out there is, the cost of Jrue Holiday's contract. And I know that this particular move right now hard caps the Trailblazers with that apron, or the first apron. So can you talk about the transactional side of this deal and how they can do things to prevent, being hard capped? What are the options here for the Trailblazers?
Well, there's a reason that this trade hasn't been officially announced yet. Legally, this isn't one of those trades that they can't do until there are some trades, like the Denny Avdia trade, for example, last year, because of the money that was involved, they couldn't actually make that trade official until the new league year rolled over on July 6th. This isn't one of those trades. If they wanted to, they could announce it right now and just do the trade as is, in which case, yes, they would be hard capped. They are not doing that as of right now, and I think that the reason for that is because we'll see what else they end up doing if they do something else with another team with one of the other veterans, whether that be Jeremy Grant or DeAndre Ayton or Robert Williams or whoever that might be. And it's a trade where they take back significantly less salary to balance it out. Then when you get on the trade call with the league office, when you're making this stuff official, then one of the things you can do is just combine these different trades into one big transaction, so that, in the aggregate, you end up taking back either less money or the same money than you received, so then you don't end up getting hard capped. So this is the kind of stuff that people who get paid a lot more money than we do in Joe Cronin's front office. It's their job to kind of figure this stuff out. But I would just say that the reason that this trade hasn't been done officially and probably won't be done officially until after July 6th is because they're still working through those options, and that's just another indication to me that there's probably something else happening as far as roster moves.
There's no question about it. We're talking with Sean Hiken, our Trailblazer insider from the Rose Garden Report here on the Rip City Drive. What about the people out there that think that this deal to bring in Holiday is just for a moment and they're going to use him in a bigger deal? What's your take on that? Do you think Holiday's here to play? Are they looking to move him again? Where do you come out on that?
I've been told that the plan is for him to be on the roster and for him to play and for him to be a part of what they're doing this upcoming season. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say, 100% certainly they are absolutely not going to trade Jrue Holiday because, obviously anything can happen. You don't want to ever say something could never happen, but all the indications that I've gotten in the last, 16 hours since the trade happened, well, actually probably closer to 24 at this point, but all the indications I've gotten in the last day was that they did not trade for Jrue Holiday with the intention of just turning around and trading him for more assets. I think their plan is for him to be here, at least for now. 3 years left on that contract. That's a long time, but so, who knows what's going to happen by then. But for right now, my understanding is that the plan is for him to be here and to be a part of whatever they're building.
Boy, it sure does feel like I don't know how you see this now, but you and I were both talking about Grant and the importance that we both said that, from our own view, the way we see it is that Jeremy Grant would be like the number one priority to move this offseason if you could. For me, after the move of Ant, I almost feel like there's even more likelihood that Grant gets moved. But how do you see the Grant situation now that Ant's been moved?
I totally agree with you. I think that especially now that because think about this. The Blazers, I know that they're very focused on what their books are going to look like as far as their cap sheet beyond this season.
Yeah.
And before this trade, without doing an extension with Shaedon Sharpe, which I don't know if they're going to get that done before October or not, but as of right now, before they had done this trade for Jrue Holiday, they had Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, and Matisse Thybulle all coming off the books, which is close to $80 million in salary coming off the books. So they would have had a lot of cap space. And throughout, since the offseason started, everybody that I've talked to in the organization has said that they're not against, taking on salary beyond this coming season. But if they were going to do that, it would have to be something that they felt like was worth it and was really a needle mover. Now, obviously they made the calculation that Jrue Holiday for, what he's going to bring to this team as they try to, go back into, move back into the playoffs is worth it. But on the other side, it's like if it makes a lot more sense if they then decide to turn around and trade Jeremy Grant maybe for money that doesn't go as long as the Jrue Holiday money or as long as Grant's contract, because then basically you're just replacing that salary slot of Jeremy Grant with Jrue Holiday, who, I think it's pretty clear makes a lot more sense with the roster. But we'll see what that ends up looking like. But I do think nothing has changed as far as it being I would say strongly advisable that they trade Jeremy Grant this summer.
Yeah, no question. The way I looked at the deal last night, my first take on it was, okay, this makes sense. They're going to clear out space, and now you're going to start Scoot and Shaedon. It never even crossed my mind that Jrue would be coming in to start. How do you read that? Because a lot of people look at Jrue Holiday and are like, hey, with the amount of money he's making, with his experience, he's won 2 championships, there's no way he doesn't start. But I don't see it like that at all. I think Scoot and Shaedon will be the starters. What do you think about that?
That's for Chauncey to figure out, and that's for, this is something that we've talked about since the end of the season where, if Jeremy Grant were somehow still on the roster, Chauncey would have to kind of cash in some of the goodwill that he has with all the players to say, hey, this is what we want to do. We want to, create the runway for Denny Avdia and Toumani Camara to be our 2 starting forwards. And even though you're, the longest tenured and highest paid guy on the team, you're going to have to come off the bench. That, to me, that's going to be a conversation that once this trade is official and Jrue gets into town, that's a conversation that he and Chauncey are going to have. And, we'll see kind of where that lands. But one thing I do know is that Jrue Holiday, after the trade, has been, publicly very, had very, positive things to say about both Chauncey and Joe and the way they handled, the original trade. And, when he got traded here from Milwaukee in the Dame trade, they worked with him and his wife on finding a place where they wanted to go and, being willing to work with them on that. So I think there is a lot of goodwill coming in between Jrue and the organization because of the way that they, accommodated him the last time. And so, again, this is a conversation that him and Chauncey and Joe are going to have at some point about how this is all going to work or whose role is going to be. That's not something that we can sit here and prognosticate about on June 24th when the trade is probably not even going to be made official for another couple of weeks, let alone anybody having any conversations about it or training camp or opening night being there. But it's definitely something they're going to have to kind of figure out at some point for sure, because I agree with you. It does make the most sense long-term for the organization for Scoot and Shaden to be the starting backcourt.
Yeah. That's the way I see it. All right, draft's coming up tomorrow night. What does your gut tell you? You anticipate the Blazers taking a player at number 11, or what do you think?
If not 11, it'll be in that vicinity. I think they're gonna. I'm not gonna rule out the idea that maybe they could move up a couple spots or move back a couple spots and pick up some other assets if they think that somebody that they like is going to still be there at like 11 or 13 or something like that. So I'm not going to say set in stone they are going to pick somebody at 11, but it'll be in that range. I don't think they're going to trade super far up, like into the top 5, let's say, because I don't think they have the stuff to do that. And I don't know if there's anybody that high up that they like enough to give up the amount of assets that it would take to do that. But I also don't think they're going to trade out of the draft or trade back into the 20s or something like that, because I do know that they still, even with making what can definitely be called a win now move with this Jrue Holiday trade, they still, I think, want to keep adding to the base of young talent on rookie scale contracts. And obviously, the higher up you are in the draft, the more chance you have of getting somebody who's really going to be an impact guy. So I think if not 11, it'll be like 9 to 13 or 14 or something in that range. It's not anything too crazy, but in that range, I think that's where they're going to be picking, whatever it ends up being.
Well, it's got to be a fun time for you, Sean. Are you ready for your big day tomorrow? You'll be part of the Rip City Drive tomorrow from 3 until 4:30, and then you'll be off to the practice facility covering the draft. Like you got a packed day tomorrow, my friend.
That's what this time of year is, man. And then, they have the second round is on Thursday, and I don't anticipate Portland's going to be doing too much there. They don't even have a pick, and I don't think they're going to be like buying into it. But then after that, it's like things kind of come quickly because, I would imagine sometime this weekend or early next week, they're going to have the press conference for whoever they end up drafting tomorrow. And then free agency starts on Monday. So that's, they could be doing something there. And then at the end of that week is when this stuff can become official. And so at some point, after that, they're going to do the official press conference for Jrue Holiday or whoever else they end up trading for, and then go to Vegas for Summer League. So this is kind of the time of year that everything is just kind of crazy, and it just doesn't stop coming.
Yeah, the only thing we need now is the Portland Fire to start playing so we can see Caitlin Clark at Moda Center. That's all.
How about that?
Gosh, it's going to be great. All right, buddy. Hey, I appreciate your time. Thank you for your work, and we look forward to hearing from you tomorrow.
Yeah.
There you go. Sean Hiken, Trailblazer Insider from Rose Garden Report here on the Rip City Drive. What was it? Who was it that? Oh, I think it was it Chris Burkhart? I think someone reached out to him on social. I mean, there's a point where you can be maybe a little bit too woke. He was, the WNBA got patents on the name Portland Fire, because that's going to be the name of the team here in Portland when we get the WNBA team here in the very near future, which is going to be cool. Because I'd like to go watch Caitlin Clark play basketball. I think my daughter would too. But someone said that they told Burkhart that the team should not be named Portland Fire because of all the wildfires in the area, and that might be a little bit too insensitive. Okay. That's a little bit too much. I was thinking about that too. Like the Arizona Diamondbacks, they should probably change their name because I know my brother was bitten by a snake when he was in the military, and it's a little insensitive to name a team Diamondbacks. Or what about the Iowa State Cyclones? I mean, that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable because, I mean, I grew up in tornado country and I survived a tornado. They got to change their name. I mean, we got to be a little more sensitive to people out there. It's crazy. Crazy. But the Portland Fire will begin play soon, which is going to be cool. Draft coverage tomorrow will kick off at 3. Again, the Trailblazers Block Party Draft Edition at 4:30 from the Rose Quarter Commons. The broadcasting will be done from inside Dr. Jack's. And then at 4:30, Travis Demers, Francis Williams take over, and they'll anchor draft coverage here on 620 Rip City Radio all the way up through the end of the first round and Joe Cronin's press conference. And be sure to stop by the draft party, the Block Party Draft Edition at the Rose Quarter Commons tomorrow, and hit the iHeart tent because we got the Trailblazers prize pack, which is sweet, autographed, authentic Scoot Henderson jersey, 4 Coors Light silver seats, and an autographed pennant. And all you have to do is stop by. You can enter to win. The Trailblazers are going to have a lot of fun things set up for the kids, blow-up games, Pop-A-Shot, I think tic-tac-toe. Maybe I can get a rematch with Nigel Burton down there. Face painting. DJ OG1's going to be bumping some music. The Rip City Remix are going to be on hand. And there'll be some sampling of different brews at Dr. Jack's. So it's going to be a lot of fun as we get ready for the 2025 NBA Draft. And the Trailblazers will be selecting number 11 overall. And maybe they trade up, maybe they trade down. But I would expect them to get a player in the draft for sure. This is Billy Ocean. Lover Boy, right? I always get this confused. This is not Lover Girl. It's I Want to Be Your Lover Boy.
Wasn't there an awesome movie from the 80s called Lover Boy?
There was.
Patrick Dempsey delivering pizzas.
And I think you were playing music from Romancing the Stone yesterday. That was nice. That was a good movie with Michael Douglas. Hey, give me some volume on this. Yeah. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. If you want to share your thoughts on the trade, do you like it? Do you not like it? Give me your reasons why. 503-248-0620. If you would like to be my lover boy, 503-248-0620.
Is there any teams that need to change their name because it's insensitive?
Yeah. I mean, I really feel like the Diamondbacks, after my brother got bit by that snake, that's way too insensitive.
What's a supersonic? A plane?
Yeah,
planes crash. They can't
true.
be supersonics. Planes kill people.
Cyclones need to be changed. I feel like the Oregon Ducks is a little bit insensitive. I'm not sure how, but I'm sure it is.
Someone from the show Glee died in a lake. So the Lakers, they need to change their name. Very insensitive.
I mean, come on. The Portland Fire. I don't think we should name it the Portland Fire. I mean, what about all the wildfires? All right, we'll keep things rolling. Or the San Jose Earthquakes. I mean, that's not proper. Think about all the people that have suffered in earthquakes. You're going to name your team the Earthquakes? Are you kidding me? We got to change that name too. I mean, there's other teams out there.
The Vegas Raiders. I don't want to be raided. That sounds like a bad thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's like Pirates.
Yeah.
The Buccaneers, the Raiders, insensitive. Both of them. They need to change their names too. And we'll think of some others. All right, 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. All right, further proof that Dolly Parton is a badass. This is a new song. Oh, give me some volume here. Wow. Yeah, that's so nice. Dolly Parton is one of the coolest chicks ever. I've got nothing but mad respect for her. So talented. This is Motley Crue with Dolly Parton. Home Sweet Home. I remember Don Henley sharing a story. He did that album, Cass Country, I think was the name of it, where he did some country songs. And I think there was a duet in there with Dolly. And he was talking about getting a chance to work with Dolly where, he set up the appointment time in the studio. He said that Dolly showed up on time, walked right into the studio, and belted out her part, one take, no issues, and said, "Thanks, honey," and then walked out. Like, she nailed it. But what I love about Dolly, too, aside from being ultra talented, but she's a great humanitarian. She cares about people. She's always giving back. And what is it? What's Hannah Montana's real name?
Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, Miley Cyrus. I think she's Miley's godmother, I think. And they've done some stuff together, too. But Dolly's awesome. I think I'm in love with her. I have been forever. And I'll never forget, so my dad met Dolly once. I think it was either Omaha or Kansas City. My dad was traveling for work, and he was at a restaurant where Dolly was at. And, when she walks in, she turns heads. But my dad said hi to her, and he said that she couldn't have been nicer. I thought that was pretty cool. And then I got in trouble in second grade at the Manford Elementary School because my parents had gone to where's that place? Branson, Missouri. And they had these suckers at some candy store, some novelty shop that my parents went to. And they were, I'm trying to make sure I say this kindly, but they were like suckers that were molded. You can make like those suckers that are molded into certain shapes or whatever. This was a Dolly Parton sucker molded into the shape of Dolly Parton. So you might imagine what was accentuated on the sucker. Well, I took it to school because I thought it was awesome and I wanted to show my friends I got in trouble.
Did they take it away? Did they give it back?
No, they didn't give it back.
Oh, that's horrible.
I know. And my dad's like, you can't be taking that to school, son. I didn't get really in trouble for it. They're just like, what are you going to do? You got a kid in second grade, boobies. It is what it is. That's actually a good question. Are there more famous breasts on the planet than Dolly Parton? That's actually a good question. It might be she might have the most famous of all time.
Well, you looked at me like I'm like the Wikipedia of breasts.
No.
So I'm trying to think if there is any more famous.
No, I'm just saying, but what I'm saying is that that's what she's known for, but she's so much more than that. She's a terrific person, incredibly talented musician. In fact, that song, can you play 9 to 5? The beat section at the beginning of that song, she was on the set of 9 to 5, the movie 9 to 5, and let's see if we can hear it. Right there. The tapping sound, that's her fingernails. And she came up, I think what she said is that she had acting was kind of a new thing to her, so she was really nervous on set. So she was sitting there trying to come up with ideas for music. And because she was nervous, she was kind of tapping her fingers, kind of a nervous habit. And that's how she came up with the rhythm. And they used her fingernails for that sound in the song because they couldn't find anything to replicate the way that her fingernails sounded. I think that's pretty cool. But listen to her voice. Yeah, Dolly's awesome. I've never seen her in concert. Are you going to the Barry Manilow concert, Shacker?
Wasn't planning on it.
Oh.
But this movie came out at a time when there was less movie competition, less TV competition.
Yeah.
Everyone knew this movie when it came out.
I can't wait until you see Karate Kid Legends so we can talk about it. But I know you're going to wait until it hits. Listen to the fingernails there. That's amazing.
Do you think it'll have like multiple endings? Is there an alternate ending we don't know about to this movie? Because you talked about how great the ending was to the Karate Kid movie.
Oh, I thought you were talking about 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Karate Kid Legends, you'll like the ending. The ending to the movie is terrific. Unexpected and fabulous. Even the beginning of the movie, the opening scene, you're going to like. They do just enough, of drawing from the past so that people like you and I can be like, oh, yeah, I'm at home right now.
Yeah. So I learned the Cobra Kai characters aren't in it because it's a different studio. So they only had access to the characters that were in the Karate Kid movie. So that's why this exists in its own universe. And so the Cobra Kai will exist in its own universe because you're dealing with different companies that made each
That's
TV
a good
show
point.
movie.
Well, what I'm thinking now, I think what we're going to get, much like we did with Creed, my guess would be after seeing this movie, Karate Kid Legends, we'll probably get another one. And if it's successful, then we'll probably get another movie. I just love that some of these classics from our childhood are being remade, so we get a chance to relive some of that stuff.
And Creed's getting a TV show spinoff on Amazon coming out. They're working on it now. Yeah. Not they're going to be dealing with the boxing gym. So the boxing gym that he trained at will be the main character.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for telling me that. Have you watched Tulsa King yet?
Not yet.
All right. I haven't either, but that's on my list. All right, big thanks to all of our guests today. Travis Demers, Sean Hiken, Chris Burkhart. I thank all of them for joining the show. Good phone calls today, good insight and feedback in regards to the trade. Just a reminder, tomorrow, Rip City Drive at 3 from Dr. Jack's up until 4:30. At 4:30, Trailblazer Broadcasting will take over to anchor the draft coverage from 4:30 until the end of the first round with Travis Demers and Francis Williams. You can always listen on our free iHeartRadio app. You can podcast there. We'll be on 620 Rip City Radio, and we'll see what shakes out tomorrow night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Big thanks to Michael Shacker. You guys have a great night, and guess what? Happy Draft Eve. It's all going to go down tomorrow, and I'm excited to see what's up Joe Cronin's sleeve as we enter draft night. Have a good night, my friends.